Generally, whenever I'm reading an action story, my biggest complaint is that it needs to have some more slow bits and take more time with character development and for romance. Likewise, when I'm reading a romance story, I often feel it drags on too long and could use a bit of action to liven things up. Up to this point, I have yet to see a perfect blend of these two, but there's one series that gives me hope. Today, a review of Kyoukai no Kanata, a light novel with a mix of high school romance, mystery, and demon slaying. Kyoukai no Kanata follows the story of Akito Kanabara, an immortal half-demon. Despite his somewhat unusual bloodline, he's pretty much going through high school like a normal kid until he sees a girl getting ready to jump off the top of a building. He tries to convince her not to jump, and she decides it would be better to kill him instead of herself. Not exactly a great success, but a success nonetheless. This introduces our second main character, Mirai Kuriyama, a blood-bending demon hunter. And after Akito manages to convince her to stop trying to stab him, a relationship between the two begins to blossom. What comes next includes plots with Demon Hunter Society, fights with werewolves, and a beautiful budding romance. The best word to describe the cast of this story is probably quirky. Our main lead heroine, Mirai, is pretty much what would happen if you took the classic clumsy girl from a Moe Blobfest story and gave her a tragic backstory and superpowers. In fights, she's pretty awesome, but outside of them, prepared to be overloaded with cuteness. Relative to her, our male lead protagonist, Akito, is pretty normal. Or would be, if not for his insane glasses fetish. Just to be clear, it isn't just that he likes girls with glasses. Oh no, it goes much further than that. His idea of how to prevent Mirai from committing suicide was to give her a history lesson on the invention and development of glasses, ending with telling her that people who look good in glasses mustn't die. So yeah. Along with those two nutballs, we have the Naze siblings, who are both demon hunters as well. Mizuki is a childhood friend of Akito's and teases him mercilessly. As the story duly notes, she is very well endowed, but since she doesn't have glasses, Akito isn't particularly interested in her. Her brother Hiromi has a little sister fetish to rival Akito's glasses fetish, and often as not, the two get along pretty well. Or at least when Hiromi's not coming on to Akito. Probably the greatest strength of this novel is its clever writing. It's one of those things where the story could make absolutely no sense, the characters could all be boring sods, and it would still be worth reading for the strength of the prose, the turns of phrase, and the references. Occasionally the references can get somewhat obscure, as is the case with things like Pavlov's dog or the familiarity principle, but the author is generally kind enough to explain them in asides. As a result, you can actually say you learnt something from reading. A truly revolutionary idea, I know. The humor in this story is also brilliant. The main issue I have with this story actually has nothing to do with what's been written so far, but rather what hasn't. You see, unfortunately at the time of this recording, only about 150 pages of this novel have been translated into English, in a fan translation, and, at the moment, there's no official translation scheduled to be released. Some degree of patience is required by those who wish to read this series. If you're already watching Kyoukai no Kanata in its anime form, I highly recommend reading the light novel because, as is the case with so many stories with adaptations, the source material is far better. If you've never encountered this series in any way, shape, or form, I'd still recommend reading it at some point as it's beautifully written. But it might not be worthwhile until a bit more of the story's being released, because at the moment, the amount that's been translated is depressingly short. If you're looking for a similar story to tide you over until more of Kanata is being translated, I would recommend the manga Iris Zero, which is a bit more serious and less action-oriented, but has a quite similar tone. Anyways, thanks for listening. Cheers!